What's up, guys? It's the Essential John L. Crossfire.
And I am Nova Lee.
And you guys are tuned into Caught
In Conversation.
Shaka Laka Laka. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 130 of Caught in Conversation, a series of fortunate events. As always, I am the Essential John L. Crossfire.
And I am Nova Lee.
And we had a very, very fun conversation with Andy Coyne. It was last week as we record this. As we do the intro and outro, it's currently Sunday the 13th of October. That will drop, obviously, in a week's time on the 20th of October, or 2 days early if you subscribe to the Patreon. We actually just got our first Patreon subscriber where they did the $10 tier, and we'll do all the bits and bobs for the Patreon and the outro with the plugs. But yeah, we're doing this intro a week in advance. As I said, we just did the conversation not quite a week ago. But yeah, a very fun conversation with Andy Coyne. We talked about how he got involved with Melbourne wrestling / Australian wrestling in general. Talked about his humble beginnings in the UK. Even name dropped Eddie Guerrero a few times, which obviously I had a moment. I had moments, to be honest with you, but no, Andy was he actually kind of even buried Shazza McKenzie at some point along here, which he actually tagged her in the post after he finished the interview with her. So hey, Shazza, if you listen, how you doing? But yeah, no, very fun conversation with Andy. Gave you, Nova, a lot of great advice, and just great advice for people in general. Even me with the commentary stuff that he said, like his advice was more aimed at colour commentary. Obviously, I prefer play-by-play, but I'm sure there's going to come a point where I may have to do colour for whatever reason, and it's his advice. Yeah. I took note of it. But did you want to give us the song and match of the week?
Okay,
and we'll explain why we've done those, and then we'll just get into the conversation.
Okay, so your song of the week for episode 130 is "Kickstart My Heart," the Hallucine cover. Ooh. And then the match of the week for episode 130 is Doug Williams versus AJ Styles, TNA Final Resolution 2010.
And now, obviously, you can explain why you've picked this song. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but
I picked this song because it's the first. It's kind of like a play on words of the first show for AUS Pro Wrestling.
Yes, of course, indeed. Their first show is called Kickstart the Heart.
The Heart.
But obviously Andy was referencing the Motley Crue song. And we just thought, we almost picked the Motley Crue song. And then we're like, the Rascal Flatts country version's actually pretty good too. And then I was like, what about the Hallucine version? And Nova was like, fuck it, you know what? Hallucine version it is. I'm a very big fan of Hallucine. It is first featuring Daria from No Apologies / the other band that she's a part of, but I can't pronounce it. But so sorry, but yeah, it's banger of a cover. Absolute, it's chef's kiss. Honestly, it's a fantastic cover. And obviously, Doug Williams comes up in this conversation as well when he's talking about British style. I was a very big fan of Doug Williams in his TNA X Division days, because obviously the X Division, the whole thing it wasn't about weight limits, it was about no limits. So it was a cruiserweight style, but guys the size of Samoa Joe were doing it every now and then, and Doug Williams was doing kind of like a no-fly zone thing. He had no high flying and da-da-da-da, and then out of nowhere he run with like a leaping tornado DDT, and it was like, hey, you said no dives, why did you do a dive, Sir Doug Williams? And this is this great little gimmick he did when he was part of the X Division. But obviously goes without saying, AJ Styles, as we record this in the graphic challenge that I'm doing, my challenge for tomorrow, which I need to start, is a number. And I'm actually doing the number 6, and it's going to represent AJ Styles' 6 X Division title reigns in TNA. And obviously, this wasn't actually for the X Division title, this one specifically. This is for the TNA television title at the time, which was also the Legends title and the Global title and however many different fucking names it had. I think it was actually the King of the Mountain Championship was the same belt as well. But AJ Styles, Doug Williams, 2 phenomenal athletes, and I just thought it's not a traditional British style match, but it just fit in with the core scheme of everything. But yeah, just really appreciative to Andy for coming on here. I saw Nova's over in the corner kind of gargling her water getting ready for this announcement. She doesn't want to She doesn't want to screw it up. So with that being said, y'all know what's going to happen. I'm going to press the button. Nova's going to do her thing, and then we're going to time travel to the outro. So, ladies and gentlemen, get hype!
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our distinguished guest from Melbourne, Victoria, by the way of England. Put your pinkies up for Lord Andy Coyne!
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Lord Andy Coyne, a ring announcer, commentator, interviewer, and now Australian wrestling promoter, which obviously we're going to get into for this conversation. But Andy, we always ask the same question for this podcast for first-time guests. I know you have done a lot of stuff, so this is something you have probably repeated. You've probably repeated this multiple times, but for the sake of this conversation and the listeners on our platform, what was your earliest wrestling memory?
Oh, that's a great question because it's a good story. When I was young and wee, and I still didn't have the innocence removed that wrestling wasn't quite real, I remember watching I think it was like a WCW Saturday night or something along those lines. But anyway, me and my family had just moved into a new house, and to kind of get me out of the way, they set up the TV, and I went to sit in there and I watched it. And in it, I just remember there was a Lex Luger taking on some random villainous mid-carder. And in the match, I just remember Lex Luger's obviously dominating most of the match. He's just about to win. He's going to hit this massive forearm. And then the referee's back is turned. The heel cheats. And Lex Luger gets rolled up 1, 2, 3. And Lex Luger loses. And it's a huge shock. And I just remember turning to my dad and I go, they are going to check the replay, aren't they? You know, I quite hadn't sunk in that what I was watching wasn't quite on the up. But yeah, that's my first memory. And I remember before that one of my best friends when I was really young, his older brother had all the VHSs of all the WrestleManias from 1 through to 7 or whatever it was at that time. And so I had never actually watched any wrestling myself at that point, but I just remember looking at these video covers of this Hulk Hogan dude, an Ultimate Warrior, and these larger-than-life characters. So, you know, that's probably my first exposure to it. But I properly got into wrestling around about just before WrestleMania 12, so just before the Iron Man match. And, you know, being into British wrestling and stuff like that, you know, that was a great main event to watch. I don't care what anyone says, that match was amazing.
At what point, Andy, did you come across Australian professional wrestling?
So, before I should explain, me and my wife, or girlfriend at the time, but me and my wife came to Australia back in November 2011. And at that point, I had actually already effectively retired from wrestling, which is obviously a running joke with most people. It never sticks. But I had been part of the British wrestling scene since 1999. Christ, that makes me feel like Grandpa Simpson talking about the lemon tree there. But I had been involved in the British scene at around about 99, and I probably stopped being involved in the British scene around 2010, which was terrible timing because, you know, a few years later, that's when the British scene exploded. So bad timing on my behalf. But came over to Australia, and me and my wife are enjoying Australia. We're traveling around. But one of the biggest challenges for any internationals who sort of come over to Australia is really making connections, trying to make new friends, trying to make new routes. So you kind of brainstorm in ways you can do it. And we joined all kinds of things, board game clubs. I joined the Drinkers Appreciation Society. That was a terrible idea in hindsight. The number of times I came home on a Wednesday night and I couldn't get my key in the keyhole. But then I obviously searched wrestling Melbourne. Because I thought, well, maybe I can get back involved in the wrestling. And I came across this promotion called Melbourne City Wrestling. So I had a look at some of their stuff, and I sort of contacted the promoters at the time, Mikey J and Tommy Hellfire. And by pure luck, Mikey J likes collecting a lot of stuff, including from the British scene. So actually, he was already aware of some of the stuff that I had done. He had already heard some of my commentary from my younger days, things like that. And he said, hey, why don't you come on down to the next show? I think it was a Final Battle 2012, which was main evented by Crackerjack taking on Hardcore Holly, I believe.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I came down and watched that event. And I think if you look at photos from that event, if you look in the background, there's a few photos where you can see me just sitting in the audience thinking soon or something along those lines. But that's how I got involved in the British scene. And at that time, and it was purely a timing thing. So at that time, MCW had just lost Bass, God rest his soul, who was the former commentator of MCW at the time. So Bass had just moved on, and there was a gap. They needed a commentator. Lo and behold, this very experienced commentator from England suddenly comes over and says, "Hi, I'd like to be involved." I actually didn't want to go back to commentary. I actually wanted to be a referee. I actually wanted Edwin Lay's job, but Mikey J convinced me that they could really do with an experienced commentator on the desk. And that has obviously got me involved in the Australian scene for another 10 years or so.
See, because I'm such a professional podcaster here, I legitimately forgot that you actually did migrate from England. I thought you were just... I don't know, it makes no sense because you got the accent. I just thought you were in Australia your whole life. So that's an egg on my face and terrible journalism, but that'll be great.
It's all right. But quite a few people have presumed my accent was gimmicked. I assure you.
But that'll awesome, because with Nova's first question, that'll actually segue, I guess, back to the origins of the British stuff first. So Nova, if you want to ask your question then, because now I'm even more intrigued now than I was before.
So you've done So you've done a lot of things in various different roles, from Snap Mayors Media, the No Holds Bar, Pop for the Pun, by the way.
But I was going to say, I was so happy with that pun. It was great. I think so good. me and my friends who did that show had been sitting on that for ages, and then eventually we teamed up with this with our friend David, who owned a pub, and we thought, well, let's film here. And then it was like, the No Holds Bar, fantastic! I can finally launch it upon the world.
I need to make friends with someone that owns a pub.
Yeah.
I met him at one of the brewery events that Moondog held, which is going to be a good place to meet someone who runs a pub. So just happened. It was meant to be.
So as well as your ring announcing and commentary, with all that being said, what was the deciding factor that got you into the business, and when did you decide you wanted to do it, Andy?
Joe, that's a really good question. Look, I think like a lot of people, I had dreams of becoming a wrestler. I did get to wrestle for about 4-5-ish years on the British scene. Thankfully, most of the matches are locked on VHS tapes, and nobody has figured out how to take onto YouTube. There is a videotape trapped in my loft in my old house in the UK called The Best of Andy Coyne, and it's never, ever going to see the light of day. But, I had dreams of becoming a wrestler, and so it started back when I started back in '99, and I went to a training centre, the FWA London training facility, and I was training to wrestle, and around that time I also was about to go to university. So the FWA actually allowed me to become a referee on their shows, and this was really handy because I was going to university in Leicester, which is the Midlands of England. And so every month, every 6 weeks, there would be a show in London. And so they would pay for me to travel down. I got to see my friends. I got to referee wrestling shows. I got the opportunity to referee some tremendous matches. And obviously at that time, it was at that time where the old school British style was beginning to phase and evolve into that sort of very early X Division TNA-esque sort of days. So as a referee, being able to still have an opportunity to see such advanced communication on how the British wrestlers would communicate with each other was a tremendous experience. And obviously it still fueled my want to become a wrestler. So the FWA in London at the time was probably considered one of the top promotions in the UK. And frankly, in hindsight, I can say this, I wasn't good enough to perform on those shows, but I was certainly competent and skilled enough to wrestle for sort of those mid-tier promotions that were in the Midlands near where I went to university. So that's where I started wrestling. Unfortunately for me, I've always had quite a few hip problems. I had a condition called Purves. Purves is essentially accelerated arthritis, which came about as a result of treatment of cancer when I was a kid. And unfortunately, my days were always going to be numbered as a wrestler. And there was a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. But, you know, you're passionate, you're knowledgeable. I've been very privileged to be a part of a influential group at the time. And it's obviously led me to more opportunities down the road. Like I said, the FWA at one time was the top promotion in the UK, which in turn meant that Mikey J from MCW got videotapes from a tape trader, had heard my stuff, and lo and behold, by pure coincidence, 10 years later, I come to Australia. Mikey J knows of my work and invites me to be a part of MCW. So, you know, coincidences and timings has always been pretty massive when it came to that transition. I mean, think about it, one little thing had been different. I don't know, maybe I'd be a doctor by now, or, you know, something that earns a bit more money. But there you go. That was how the British wrestling came to be.
So that kind of popped me a little bit, because I know that Nova, you kind of had like a little squibble there of, we should just ask him in general if you know, considered being a wrestler, just because why not? And then he jokes about having the best. Like, I was a wrestler, Andy, wink, wink, and a nudge, for 3.5 years with 46 matches under my belt, and I guarantee you could pick any of those Andy Coyne matches, and they'd probably be better than anything I
am technically a 4-time British champion. However, saying that, getting championship is way easier than a lot of people would like to believe. So, and I get ribbed by JXT about this all the time, but he knows I'm taking the piss when I talk about being a 4-time champion. But yeah, technically I am a 4-time British champion, so I'll have a little bit of respect on that name.
I guarantee you that the best of Andy Coyne would be much better than the best of John.
I've always decided if that tape ever came out to play, I would have to get a lot of money for charity. It's no way it's going out for free. It's cringy. It's in standard definition. It's in it's a square format. There's a really good chance the VHS reels have worn away. So yeah, don't hold your breath, everyone.
The next thing that I kind of wanted to ask is, from a rookie ring announcer such as myself, I'm essentially a baby ring announcer. I've only done 2-3 shows.
2 shows we're about to do, I think.
Yeah. And to a seasoned one such as yourself, Andy, do you have any advice for me at all?
Do you know what? Yes. And it's interesting because Gemma Stone, who's obviously ruling the Australian wrestling world at the moment, when she first got involved, she actually went out of her way to sort of ask me for advice. And I think a lot of it comes down to actually watching back what you do and trying to be critical of your own performance. And I know it may seem strange to think that as a ring announcer, you need to critique your performance, so to speak, when there's people around you doing 360 flips to the outside with pilot through concrete stairs. But it's really important. And I think a lot of times where ring announcers need improvement in is being brave to stand still and knowing what you're going to do with your hands. It's really nerve-wracking, but, when you start these things, people pace. They pace around the ring. They kind of jump from one foot to the other. And that's also really good advice for young wrestlers doing promos as well. There's nothing that winds me up when there's a really excellent promo going on in front of me and I see the wrestler doing this. Yeah, swaying.
Yeah.
I just realised this is an audio thing. So yeah, what people can't see is me swaying left and right because the wrestler just needs to stand still, stare at the camera, and know how to gestate with their hands. At least with a ring announcer, you've only got to worry about one hand because the other hand's usually got a microphone in it. But generally, those are the main things. It's that body language. If you look at what I do in the ring, it seems really silly and simple, but it's something that a lot of people overlook. Is I come into the ring, I stand in the center, I very slowly and I articulate what's going on. The following contest is scheduled for 1 fall, coming out first, and I'm staying perfectly still. I've got my microphone in my left hand, and I'm intentionally moving my right hand in a certain way. I'm not letting it flat by the side, or I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this?
You're essentially conducting.
Yeah, exactly. That's one way to look at it. That's one way to look at it. And then when you say, coming out first, and then when the music hits, just wait a moment, and then walk to the side of the ring, because obviously you're about to have some athletic muscle guy about to do a flip into the middle of the ring and pose. You don't want to be in the way when that happens. You want to move to the side, and then once they've done their pose, just calmly bring the mic back to your mouth and just go, and his opponent, and he comes in, and then if it's in ring intros, again, just stand in the middle, stay perfectly still, be calm, say, the following contest, schedule, for the championship, blah, 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 and then leave the ring. And I think that's it. I think it's the difference between looking professional and looking amateur.
Yep.
And I think, and also, and this is a personal pet peeve, I know a lot of people do it, but for God's sake, get rid of the clipboard. I hate clipboards with passion. I think they absolutely ruin it for me. I don't know if you are a clipboard person. If you are, I'm very sorry, but just my stance. I think
I have cue cards.
So she has a clipboard. She has a clipboard that she carries stuff on. She has a clipboard that she carries stuff on.
That's
but when it comes to the actual announcements and stuff, at the suggestion of one gemstone, it was cue cards.
Yes, because she's like, at least you can kind of hide those in your
I advised her of that as well, so I'm glad that's trickling down.
She passed that on to me, and I was like, anyone on the show that does ring announcing, I'm going to ask them advice.
But no, Jem, but obviously we're talking about Jem. Jem's absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
I was really, really happy that she took the time out to sort of get my advice, get me to critique her work. And I'm really glad, and she's a wonderful person, and I'm so happy for her getting opportunities all over the place at the moment. So yeah, I mean, good on her. But she took the time to look at what she was doing and how she looked and how she dressed and how she presented, and the way she was previously and the way she is now is night and day. And she worked at that. And sometimes there are little changes. Are you going to dress more professionally? Are you going to use cue cards? Are you going to stand fucking still? It's all these little things that just builds up. So, yeah. So that's the main advice. I think look at what you're doing and try and go, what can I do? And also look at other ring announcers. I mean, it's one of those things where everyone thinks ring announcing, commentating, all these things are super easy. And don't get me wrong, compared to trying to pack on 600 pounds of muscle and military press power slam somebody, through the ring is very impressive. Don't get me wrong, and I'm certainly not trying to compare them. But it isn't a case that everyone can do these things. You do need someone who's comfortable, who's confident, and actually takes a bit of pride in it as well, to be honest with you.
That's the best advice I could have ever gotten. That's so good.
We've had now Andy, we've had Jem, cheap plug. By the time this episode drops on the 20th of October, Jem's episode will premiere a week ago, and obviously we had Michael Lee on here as well. And I think between the three of them have actually said very similar things, but there's also the little. This is where Andy comes down, where for some people, some things work, some things don't. It's just those little bits and bobs that are personal preferences. But as a whole, I think you've actually basically all said mostly the same thing, which is obviously a testament to while you are all where you currently are.
Well, this is it. And in many ways, a lot of it feels like common sense, but this is wrestling. Not everyone has common sense. So there you go.
good.
But I'll jump back in here, Andy, with my next question. And obviously, the main reason we got you on here was we wanted to talk about AUS Pro Wrestling. And the simple question, the easy question, is basically what drove you to become a promoter after all this time? And also, where did
I wanted to make a lot of money, and I thought this is the easiest way of doing it, to run a promotion. That's the answer I give everyone. I don't know why people laugh. He says, crying. No, do you know what? It's a bucket list thing. And you know, I had been doing this for over 25 years now, and the thing is that, you know, and I can look back and go, wow, I've done a lot of really cool stuff. You know, I've got to work with, obviously, big promotions here in Australia, big promotions in the UK. I got to do a gig with Ring of Honor. I've done a gig with New Japan, real New Japan, and I did a gig with, you know, Progress Wrestling when they came over, and obviously GPW as well when they recently came over. GCW. Sorry, I went blank there. Yeah, Game Changer Wrestling. And so I was kind of like, I was feeling like I was hitting a bit of a rut. And in many ways, I think I want to just take a step back, because I sort of was working for Renegade. And honestly, I was kind of going through a phase of, I wasn't really enjoying my work. There wasn't really anything wrong. I just wasn't really enjoying my work. And I think if you listen to my Game Changer Wrestling versus Renegades of Wrestling call, I just wasn't really into it. Which is a shame. And honestly, I just felt I need to take time. I need to just take a step back for my own mental sake more than anything, and to reassess what I want to do out of wrestling, what I want to do out of life. Like, do I want to pursue other interests and other hobbies and things like that? And running a promotion had always been, or running a show, I should say, not promotion. Running a show had always been on the bucket list. And I have co-promoted shows before. So I had promoted Underworld Wrestling alongside a few other people, including Mark Williamson. And before that, years ago, I did one with a promotion called LVN over in the UK as well. Again, co-promoted. But being co-promotion means you're spreading responsibility. And frankly, with Underworld Wrestling, I was only responsible for like 10% of it. So I don't want to take any credit away from anyone else in that team who obviously invested way more money and way more time into it. I was very proud of what we accomplished there, but to say I co-promoted it would be accurate. Say I promoted it, a bit different. And so I decided this is something I always wanted to do. And not only that, I wanted to try and promote it in a different way. But you see, in my shoot job, my real life work, I'm a digital marketing person. I've been involved in marketing, since 2004, so 20 odd years. And I've been able to access various marketing programs that aren't necessarily widely available. And I thought, right, if I can't promote a local show using these tools, there's something very wrong with me. So I thought, right, so I want to try and run a family geared show. So there's a certain marketing approach, there's a certain family-centric philosophy that I want to run with. And honestly, it's a little bit for the ego as well. You know, you don't get into wrestling without wanting to do it for yourself. And I think one of the great things about, you know, promoting your own show, putting your own money into it, is that it becomes very personal. It's something you think about all the time. The book stops with you. And also one of the other joys is there's various people who I've seen over the years. There's obviously wrestlers I've met from MTW days. There's guys I've seen at different training schools. There's guys I've seen online. And you kind of have a bit of a mental list of, I'd like to use him on the show. If I ever did one, I'd like to use him. I'd like to use her. I'd like to do this. And so now it's like, right, I can do it. I'm going to do it. So a bit of money fell in my lap. And I thought, right, I'll take a small amount of this and I'm going to do a show. And that's it. And if the show is successful, great. We can look at doing more shows. I can try and divvy out jobs to more people. But right now, it's pretty much me. With a lot of support. I don't want to piss people off now. But, you know, with a lot of support from friends and colleagues and trainees and wrestlers and things like that. But a lot of it is on my shoulders. And I am really enjoying it. It's a challenge. I am really enjoying it. But really, it was for the experience more than anything. And if it, like I said, if it's successful, great. We can talk about the next show, which actually is already technically scheduled for the Saturday, 1st of February. I had to at least schedule the dating with the venue. But and if it isn't successful, hey, I gave it a go. I can take all the money and go off on a private jet to an island somewhere, and no wrestler will find me. I lie. I have the money. Everyone will get paid. I promise.
What about the just the name AUS Pro Wrestling? Where did that come from, Andy?
Oh man, God, that's a good question. I mean, if you want to just be very blatant, it's a wrestling promotion in Australia. No, I think I was trying to be. Actually, no, I can't answer that. I think I was trying to be a little bit clever because I hate promotions with the triple initials thing because it's done to death. But the irony is Oz is a word whilst also being 3 letters. So I kind of designed the logo to be like Oz, and it's kind of like invoking that whole triple letter thing, but really it's its own word as well. Secondly, there was a little bit of an AEW influence in there as well. So if you look at the logo design, there's certain things that mimic from that. But actually, a big part of what I did was really inspired when I used to work for a promotion in the UK, and I mentioned them earlier in the interview, and that was a group called LDN. LDN literally is the initials of London, basically. They are London Wrestling, LDN. And I kind of like that approach. And the way LDN's branding works, if you go look at it online, it's all very British. It's a very British thing to do, to flag on everything and go, British wrestling, for the kids, for the families. And it's an approach that I really respect because here in Australia, there's a lot of really exciting super indie style promotions, MCW, Renegades, OPW. And I thought, right, I want to actually promote this to a local audience. So let's take that consideration into branding. And it's Oz Wrestling. It is Australian wrestling. That is the product. I'm simplifying the product for the local family. The people who don't necessarily know who Slex or Adam Brooks are, the people that aren't aware of the legacy of Crackerjack. At the end of the day, it is a wrestling show. Good guys versus bad guys. And it just gives them a nice opportunity as well. But by doing that approach, I'm not necessarily pressured into using the established guys in Australia. And I can create some opportunities for some younger guys and some opportunities for trainees. And I can mix it up by putting a few of the more experienced guys with younger guys and things like that. So, but that's where the design and the logo came into it. And then from there, you're thinking Australia. So, there's green, there's gold in there. I've sort of snuck in the stars, the Southern Cross stars into the design a little bit and things like that. It's a bit on the nose, not going to lie. But at the end of the day, when you're trying to present it's a very marketing mindset. If you're trying to present a very specific product with a specific message you're trying to communicate with the brand, sometimes you've kind of got to go with these obvious hints.
Hell yeah. And I'm sure, as we talk about AUS Pro, and you mentioned before, November 2nd is the event, which is you've actually called Kickstart the Heart. Obviously, it's cheeky song reference, which some people hate. I personally love the cheeky song references.
Do you know what? Somebody, just before I announced the show name, I think it was literally 2 days before the show name, somebody I knew on Facebook and on Twitter said, God, I really hate it.
I actually saw this, and I saw your comment, and then I saw 2 days later when it come out, and I was like, and all the dots connected.
The really awkward emoji smile.
All the dots connected, and I was like, oh. I was like, Andy knows this person. I get it.
I was struggling between. I wanted to call it either Kickstart the Heart or On This Rock because I'd made a comment like, on this rock I will build my kingdom, stuff like that, and I think in an earlier post. But I went with Kickstart the Heart. And I think one thing that was actually really challenging is because I'm trying to promote to the local audience, people may have noticed that on some of it, Kickstart the Heart as a show name is almost pushed back a little bit. More of the push is on the actual branding itself. And that's actually been done quite intentionally. But yeah, Kickstart the Heart. I mean, at least it makes sense. To be honest, it's like, I'm kickstarting the heart of Australian wrestling in Ringwood, he said, putting up his thumb.
No, so honestly, I one for the song reference in general, I popped because I love Motley Crue, but I'm like, it works. Rock and wrestling goes hand in hand all the way back to the 80s. But I was like, it makes sense. I literally looked at it as he's jump starting the promotion or show or whatever it may end up being, as you say. But makes a lot of sense. But I'm sure we'll get into all the matches and everything as we get into the plugs towards the end of the conversation. But I had a question sent to me on my personal Facebook by Aussie wrestling superfan Mick Robson, who formerly wrote for...
Mick, I know Mick.
Yes, formerly wrote for the...
What's that cheeky boy asking?
Yes, he wrote for Snapmares Media at one point, under Lord Andy Coyne. So, anyway, he said, the exact quote was, and I've literally just copy and pasted it, so hopefully there's no typos, because I keep giving Nova typos in her notes, good God. Exactly what measures are in place to ensure that gore is, quote, family-friendly? Shock treatment, blackmail, etc.
Right.
Oh, Mick.
I think what people have to understand is that poor Gore, or Gory, as I like to call him, has been terribly miscasted. And it's like when you have a tremendously talented actor who was once really good in a horror film, and therefore he's constantly put in horror films. And I generally think that the fans have made Gore the way he is. And you know what? Deep down, I think underneath that terrifying latex mask is a truly warm, fuzzy individual who just wants a hug. And I spoke to him on the phone, and I said, hey, man, doing this show. And admittedly, I kind of got the impression he needed some money, but he agreed to the booking. And I have every confidence that we're going to see a really, really different side of Gory. And I think it's going to be really refreshing. And I'm so confident I've put him in the ring with another really lovely young lad in the Wrangler, Bush Kelly. And I know Bush is really excited. He's a lovely, optimistic lad. And I think these guys are going to have a great match. They're going to go in there, shake hands, technical wrestling, inside cradle, 1, 2, 3, and they're going to have a hug afterwards. It's going to be lovely.
I mean, look, provided, he's not trying to swerve us or anything, obviously we're not going to let you, sit here and tell you all the plans, but there was I can't tell you the date or the year because the years have just flown by, but there was a point in DMDU where Gore was actually posing while Nicki Minaj was playing in the background, and I actually said to my wife that there could be something here.
Do you know what? I think there's a good man about a couple of inches underneath that layer of rock hard muscle and twisted steel. I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised when he comes out with his new family-friendly demeanor. I have a couple of surprises for the show. We are gonna tweak his gimmick a little bit. We're gonna make him look a bit more appropriate for a family audience, and you're all gonna see that he's not the monster you've all made him out to be, because the real victim is Gore here. He is the victim of our scene, and I'm gonna fix that for him.
I cannot wait to see footage of when it's going. I'll let Nova ask her next question before I just turn this into a rant.
So moving away for just a moment, Andy, so we can squeeze in our usual questions that we always ask our first-time guests. This is where we start to mark out a little. What is your favourite match of all time, both that you've personally got to announce for and that you've seen just in general?
Ooh. Gosh. Oh, well, okay, the ring announce one. Let me answer that a couple of different times. I think commentary-wise, I'm kind of evolving your question a little bit. Commentary-wise, I still think one of my favourite matches that I commentated on, it's quite an old one now, but it was when Carlo Cannon won the MCW Championship from Mike Peterson.
Oh,
there was just something pretty magic in the air that night. There had been a really good storyline that had built to it. And it also featured myself and Travis Houston, who was my co-commentator at the time. We were just on form. We were in the moment. And it also features my favourite line of commentary I've ever said. When I said that when Carlo Cannon kicked out of Mike Peterson's finisher, I said, what is Mike Peterson going to do? Tonight he is wrestling the devil himself. And it just like this really fantastic match. And I do recommend everyone goes and watch that on. I'm sure it's on. No, it won't be on Horizon. Sorry, that'll be on the Ozrest network. So have a look at that if you're on there. Ring announcing, Okada versus Flex. I think was such a tremendous match. I think it obviously took Flex to the next level as a competitor. The fact that he didn't leave for greater success for him, thanks to COVID and Ring of Honor closing and stuff like that, is a real crying shame. But that match was fantastic. And I was nervous as hell announcing his name because Gino Gambino was backstage and, he was involved in helping to bring New Japan over to Melbourne. And I'm pretty sure if I fucked up the announcing, he was going to take my kneecaps. As a referee, I got to referee Doug Williams of
yes.
TNA. Doug taught me my first back bump. I'm glad you know who Doug is. Doug is a freaking legend. He's a lovely man.
That may be the biggest name drop we've had on the pod, to be
Well,
honest.
that's a good name drop. That's a good name drop. We're still Facebook friends, so I'm happy about that. He's an absolute gentleman. He's a tremendous wrestler, especially at the time. He was balancing that old school technical style and sort of merging it to the new style of X Division style that was coming through at the time. I got to referee him versus a young Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
In a technical match in England. So it was very technical.
Oh.
He was still doing the American Dragon gimmick with the mask on and everything at the time. And also him versus, as a referee, also him versus Jerry Lynn in an Iron Man match, which was really. But I think the reason I like that match so much is because the match ended with me going for a free count as the referee and going 1, 2, and then the bell rings. So it ended as a draw. But we were on the UK fan forum, which is an online forum. The social media wasn't really about at that time. There was a conspiracy being floated around that I fucked up the ending of the match. I didn't. But for that moment, I had so much heat. And then you had random fans coming out and saying, I got it from my sources, he fucked it up and it was meant to be this. It's like, where are you getting all this from?
Dave Meltzer, is that you?
Oh, but no, it was like, it's amazing. So, God bless fans. By the way, I say that knowing full well I'm a fan as well, so I'm trying not to be precious here. But God, that one moment, I became enemy number one. Because
you had to look in the mirror for a second and go, wait, did I actually?
And apparently I derailed the plans. And it's like, no, that was what was meant to happen. Shit.
Wow. That is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky and very fortunate because I had a sort of a whole separate career, for lack of a better term, in the UK, and I got to meet a lot of very young wrestlers who went on to become, big stars, and I was very lucky and very fortunate to have that experience. And often, it was either as a ring announcer, a commentator, but often as a referee. And when I was doing it as a referee, I had hopes and dreams of becoming a wrestler myself, a more serious wrestler myself. So it was a great education. And I do recommend, look, if any trainees out there, don't be a snob. Go be a referee. You'll learn so much. Seriously, don't be a snob. Go be a referee. You'll learn all.
I'm glad that we have someone with the career behind them of Andy Coyne saying this, because I'm just a nobody, Andy. I've been in the business, which I fucking hate saying, for 8 years now, but I've been out of the ring for 4 years because of health. But I say that to everyone. Like, obviously, there's no wrestling without wrestlers, but to me, I feel like the referee is the most important thing, and I will always put that up there. Like, I've experienced rookies, and I say that because, like, I'm still green as good shit regardless, but I've seen people come in after me, and they've been like, oh, hey, we're going to make you ref this match, and, like, they've been backstage, and they're like, yeah, but I don't want to ref, I want to wrestle, and I've literally just gone,
Like I said, I've been very fortunate, and just to be a bit of a prick, I'm going to do a lot of name dropping now. But as a referee, I got to referee matches with Samoa Joe, Raven, CM Punk, AJ Styles, Balls Mahoney, Jerry Lynn, and oh god, more Kendrick, Paul London, Christopher Daniels, the Fallen Angel, and like I say, there you go. There's some. Eddie Guerrero. So lots of I refereed an Eddie Guerrero match.
That is
Fuck you all.
See, actually, as we record this, it's actually would have been Eddie's 57th birthday today, and he's my fucking all-time idol. Like, I am very biased to anyone that says bad about Eddie Guerrero. I'm just like,
look, what I love is everyone. Look, around this time, everyone always puts up a post going, "Oh, I saw this match and it inspired me," and I'm thinking, I went drinking with the fucker. Fuck you all. I'm cool.
Dude.
Yes. He was a lovely guy. He was a lovely guy. However, my girlfriend at the time, you know how partners have a laminated list of famous people they're allowed to get off with. Yeah, my girlfriend had Eddie Guerrero on her list, so I was so goddamn nervous that night. But he was a married man. He was a goddamn gentleman. He was actually lovely. The funny Eddie Guerrero story is I refereed his match, and as a referee, he's beating up his opponent in the corner, and I go, 1, 2, come on, Eddie, out of the corner, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and I did the, get out of the corner symbol to him. And he looked at me, and he just went, "Don't you fucking touch me!" And I thought, oh, God, I pissed off the famous international. I am so screwed. And anyway, backstage, I see Eddie Guerrero, who's just had the match. He's obviously, heaving and everything, because he's just, had adrenaline come through. And he comes over to me, and I think, oh, I'm going to get such a fucking telling off. And he comes over and says, "Hey, man, that was some really great refereeing. Thanks." I was just like, oh, my God.
Dude,
I would have just died right there.
I've done that with, local guys. And I'm like, oh, my God. Let alone Eddie.
And then he leaves the locker room. My girlfriend follows him. What the fuck? Anyway.
Get back here.
But anyway, my point was, look, I was very fortunate to have that incredible experience with so many wrestlers as a referee. I learned so much. And obviously not every referee in this country will get that opportunity. They're saying that loads of people will be referees and get in the ring with people, and those people, they don't know who it's going to be, and those people are going to go on to WWE one day. I'm sure people didn't think that Rhea Ripley at the time was necessarily going to be the fucking uber star that she is. And obviously Delta's just gone over, and, Matt Silver and things like this. So, look, don't be a snob. There's so much to learn. Go be a referee. And obviously go do all the other small jobs as well. Trust me, the best thing you can do to get your foot in the door are these little jobs. Because, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but at the moment, there's a dream list of people I want to use for my shows in the future. And the reality is the guys who have sent me a message going, "Hey, Andy, I'd like to help out with the show," they are one step closer to everyone else. So, not trying to be brutal with that, but that is the reality of the situation. Helping out the promoters, you get to learn so much. It's all the little things.
It will be before Nova asks her next part of the question. That's kind of it's not that she's my wife that she got into the business. She did the same thing. She come up, she saw, shit needed to be done, and all of a sudden my wife's throwing more boards onto the truck or onto the ring than some of the wrestlers were, which is a story I've told on this podcast many times. I'm just like, why is my wife doing more work than, you people that are booked? But that's another story. But I think, honestly, that's how she got the spot as the ring announcer.
We name dropped her earlier, and she's at the stage now where saying her name is a name drop. Well, we were talking about Jem Stone earlier as well, and I remember that at every show, she was helping out the ring crew. Every show, she was helping out with the logistics. She'll be helping me out with the logistics of my Oz Pro show as well, and she'll be ring announcing as well, obviously. That's a great example. Just the best way, there's a saying, the best way to become popular is to make yourself useful.
Because I did cameras.
Very true in wrestling.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did
and canteen,
cameras, ring
I've done everything. I've been everywhere. Oh, the best.
You'd like to ask your next part of the question, Nova.
So my next question for you, Andy, is who is your ultimate dream wrestler that you, 1, could interview, 2, announce for, And 3, possibly even manage?
Oh, I like that last one. Because I've only managed a few times, and I was quite lucky. I got to manage DCT when he was here. In fact, we're very good mates now.
Lovely Scottish gentleman.
He's a Scottish wanker, but he'll appreciate it. Look, my all-time favourite guy, like you could put this name, look, Owen Hart is the fucking don of the history of wrestling as far as I'm concerned. He was my number one guy. To have been able to have met, ring announced, commentate on an Owen Hart match, oh man, I wouldn't. I think the reason I loved Owen Hart so much was I think I related to him. I was also the younger brother of a more talented man, and I felt like, yeah, go on, Owen, kick the leg out of his leg. Slap the sharpshooter on, yeah, fucking throw the towel in. So I sort of relate to that. But Owen Hart was such a great character as well as a great technical wrestler, and obviously a great aerial and stuff like that. And he did a load of wrestling in the UK, so he's pretty damn. He's cooler than Brett. Sorry, Brett. He's cooler.
Would you like to ask the last official question so we can go into all the plugs for the AUS Pro?
So what would your dream stipulation be that you could be a part of?
Oh, sorry. So that again, I missed that.
So what would your dream stipulation be that you could be a part of? So whether that be like managing or
even just like match types, match types.
Like
I
match
know you've
types and
been
stuff.
Oh, right.
And I
should reword that. Yeah.
If I was in a match, what would be my dream?
If you want to say in a match, but like whether you're refereeing or managing or just being able to do commentating for, like.
I gotta tell you, I do love. Actually, I've got 2 matches. Because I've always been a big fan of the technical wrestling stuff. I think I really enjoy watching and commentating on a match where guys are doing like pretty advanced technical wrestling. Because then there's so much more to talk about. You've got to talk about strategy, technique, the placement of their feet, where their body weight is and stuff like that. And that really lends itself well, or it can do anyway, that lends itself well to Iron Man matches because there's that kind of long deal going on. And if you've got a decent co-commentator with you, you can have discussions about, well, is he going to, go all out straight in? Is he going to, pace it out a little bit? What strategies is he doing? And the multiple strategies. But actually, beyond that, and it's not a style or a match type, that would get the cockles heated up for most fans these days. But the old Mount Evans rules, the British rounds, has a similar concept.
Actually, where the Heritage Cup, obviously WWE kind of changed it. Before NXT UK folded, that was some of our favorite stuff to watch every week. With when Rampage Brown came in, I was so hyped, and obviously COVID fucking ruined all of that. But dude, that's honestly Nova. That's probably your favorite.
Big fan
I'm a big
British
tag team wrestling guy, but the British strong style as it is today is some of Nova's favorite. So that's pretty. That kind of pops me. Obviously, it makes sense. It's Lord Andy Coyne.
Again, there's so much. It's so much strategy, and as I did back in the UK, I got to. I mentioned a few times now. Obviously, I was working with a group called LBN, and where I helped produce their TV show that they had on the Wrestling Channel back in the early 2000s, and as well as their sort of more American style matches, i.e. their heavyweight title, stuff like that, they also had what they called the Spirit Division, which was effectively British round rules. And I effectively got the book on it. And it was great because what I could do is I could have matches where somebody would win it 2-0. Somebody might go 1-1 and it comes down to a sudden death at the very end, or they might actually hold out to the very last round and then try and win it. Or, there were so many different strategies and stories that you can tell. I mean, you might think that 2 out of 3 falls or KO to a finish in a 5-round is limiting, but actually that's where limits often make you more creative, and there were a lot of different styles that you could go for it. I think those sort of matches where wrestlers are almost forced to put logic into their matches and storylines into their matches are really what I enjoy and really what I prefer. And look, that's not to diss a lot of modern wrestlers because obviously the style and wrestling as an art form evolves. But, you know, then again, I'm just an old git, and I just came from a time when I was in the audience and we saw a wrist lock reversal into a wrist lock reversal, and everyone went apeshit crazy for it. But, you know, so yeah, it's just a preference. But that would be it. I think those Mount Evans British rules, or you know, Ironman matches, when the psychology is done right, those matches can be phenomenal.
So I've kind of got a bit of a bonus question that I'm going to throw in here as well. So because you've previously wrestled, who would your ultimate dream like wrestler that you'd love to wrestle be?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. I mean, again, you could say Owen Hart, but that feels like a really obvious answer. God, I'm trying to think of my own. Do you know what? Although at the time when I was wrestling, he wasn't exactly an icon for me. I mean, looking back. I fancied myself and enjoyed technical wrestling. So who wouldn't want a match with Daniel Bryan? Bryan Danielson. God, I keep saying that. Bryan Danielson. Who wouldn't want to? I mean, that guy can make a broom look amazing. So, you know, and again, for me as well, I think it would feel kind of weirdly coming full circle as well. You know, having wrecked one of his matches early in his career and then tapping him out in the main event of a pay-per-view. Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet.
The psychology you could throw behind that match would be chef's kiss. That'd be awesome. Oh, man. Actually, I had another bonus question, too.
Throw it out. You're a co-host.
I'm full of them. So another thing I wanted to ask is, I've done a little bit of commentating. I've only done one so far and done ring announcing. And I just wanted to ask, like, did you have any advice for that even? Because I've done it with John and we've done a bit of commentating, but it's just, I want to get better at, if they throw me into it again.
Yeah, well, in fairness, you were thrown under the bus. I was like, your wife is
calling. It was a couple of hours notice. Yes, it was a couple of hours notice, so it wasn't the best that I probably would have done, but I was just like, oh, some advice would be great.
Hey, commentating is hard.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it's one of those things where everyone thinks anyone can do it, and to be absolutely frank, they can't. It also comes down to chemistry as well. Like, you can put two of the greatest commentators together and it'll be shocking bad because they just don't click. I think the best thing to do as a commentator is to understand the storylines of the matches, and what's going on, the psychology of the matches. And that admittedly gets harder because there's often times where I've asked a wrestler, what is the story of the match? What is happening? Please tell me. You know, what is it that you're looking for? You know, speak to the wrestlers. They will help you out. Except a lot of them sometimes don't know themselves. And in fact, I've always had an annoyance with one Shazza McKenzie. I know she's beloved, so this might get me cancelled. I don't know. But one thing that always wound me up with her is I would say, hey, what's the psychology of your match? What's the story? And she'll just sarcastically say, just tell people I'm awesome. I'm just rolling my eyes. And then I'll go out there and she'll spend the whole match working on someone's leg, trying to slow them down. It's like, why didn't you tell me this? Because then I could have prepped it, you see. Because if you're aware of things, you can... Let's say, it's a good example. Let's say someone says, I'm going to work on the leg. Great. Now that you're aware of the story, you can obviously say at the beginning, her opponent's known for being really quick. You know, you can plant that little seed there. You know, you are a narrator of that match.
Oh, Jim Bob McGee's got a history of knee surgeries. By God, he's going to focus on that.
But that's the thing. It's like, talk to the wrestlers, and if the wrestlers don't give you anything, fine, make up your own psychology. I just think going into each match with an idea of what the storyline is, whether it's the wrestler's version of it or your version of it, will help you massively as you tell the story.
I've actually done that a few times. Like, obviously, I'm play-by-play, which people seem to think is weird because usually most former wrestlers go, I want to be on color because my character has to get over him. It's like, fuck it, let me tell the story. Like, I want to be a bootleg Jim Ross. But, like, literally, like, someone will be doing something and it'll be like, well, they told me earlier backstage that this was their strategy. No, they didn't. But, but like, you know, it makes sense to the...
Oh, and if you are going to be colour, for the love of God, if you're a heel colour, let the play-by-play guy get the last word and let him take control of the match. Don't be like JBL and just talk over absolutely everything and bully your way through it. Big annoyance. But yeah, I was going to say, I think that's the thing. I think have a story. Also do your research because that will help you. And when I say research, like I remember a quick example off the top of my head, had Marcus Cool come over for a Renegades match, and not that long ago he had recovered from neck surgery. It was taken on Ant Cava. So of course, Ant Cava's got the full Nelson, his Cavalok. And what does the full Nelson focus on? The neck, So these are things that you can talk about and work on. And then when he's finally locked it in, you can say, well, Marcus Cool had to tap out because at the end of the day, it wasn't worth risking the injury to his neck, basically. So again, that's the storyline or sort of a match story that you can prep yourself to help guide you through the commentary. Otherwise, you're just commentating blind, and that's really difficult. And I've had to do that. It's not easy.
I saw a match very recently for a company that I work for. I wasn't on the show, so I watched it back after the fact just because of health reasons and whatever else, where the match was, I'm not going to mention who because they'll know exactly who I'm talking about if they listen back to this, but the whole match focused on working the neck. And then the match ended on a leg submission hold out of nowhere.
Yeah, I can see why that would irritate you.
I understand, like, but in MMA it happens and da-da-da-da, and I'm like, I get that, but psychology would say, weaken the leg so I can play it up, please. And my response was literally, I'm glad I didn't have to call that. That was literally...
Sorry, I'm just changing seats. I have to charge my laptop.
No, there we go. Good. I did the same thing before.
Always bonus question.
I was just like, I saw it, and it's like, yeah, he's working the head. Boom, leg lock, tap out, and I was just like, fucking what? Anyway, if you'd like to ask the last official question, Nova, and then we'll get into all the plugs and all the fun stuff.
So my last official question before we get into all the plugs and everything, and especially about Kickstart the Heart. We always end the official interviews on a non-wrestling question. This one actually sent in by Michael Lee. And it was just, what is your favourite type of tea, Andy?
God, fuck's sake. I knew that question was coming. God damn it. Leave me alone, you bunch of bars. No, okay.
So stereotypical.
Look, one of my favourite things to do is to go out on the weekend with my wife and my kid and go have a lovely brunch. And usually I'm a sort of an English breakfast kind of guy. But when I go for brunch, French Earl Grey just tickles those fancies. It really does. So it's got to be a French Earl Grey. It's got to be brewed well. You put too much hot. If the water's too hot, it will burn the tea leaves. Don't do that. And then put a little bit of milk on the side so I can judge the flavour myself. Don't put the milk in for me. That'll make me angry. I'm very particular with my tea. In fact, I was going to say, I think if I give up on the wrestling, I think me and my wife are planning to go around to all the different brunch places, do reviews, and basically review how bad their cups of tea are as well. So it'll be like a little book for English people, telling people where not to go for a terrible cup of tea. Because the thing about Melbourne, your coffee is amazing, but I hate coffee. Hate it with a passion, which is weird. I've come to the wrong city. And I love the smell of it, can't stand the taste. But me and my wife will go for brunch, and my wife will have ordered something that's been dripped through some maze of a test tube or something through an ice cube that was sourced from the Antarctic. And it smells and looks amazing. And I go, oh, darling, can I taste that? And I have a sip, and I'm just gagging from the taste of it. And then I look at my cup of tea, and it's the colour of the moon. It's just like, what the fuck is that? So if you can, every brunch place, if you can poach an egg correctly, that's good. If you can make my wife a great coffee, that's also good. But seriously, guys, you've got to up your tea game. It's just getting embarrassing at this point.
Well, in that case, I'll throw in a bonus question before I ask about the
bonus question.
What's your opinion, because we're based just outside of Wagga, so we're kind of smack bang between Sydney and Melbourne, and I can attest to every time we're in Sydney for my eye appointments, we have that coffee, and I'm like, good God, I wish my appointments were in Melbourne because the Sydney coffee is terrible. But what's your opinion on the current, like the whole? It's a bit of a hipster thing currently. It's a bit of a trend, but the whole iced coffee trend, because I'm a sucker for a good peach iced coffee.
Iced tea,
Iced tea. Sorry, yes, iced tea. What is your take on iced tea?
Oh, there you go. Yes, you had to scribble out iced coffee and write iced tea in the questions there. Iced tea can be good. I like an iced tea, but I'd rather have a hot tea.
Because I've met some people that like, I've got friends that are like they will get mad if you offer them tea because they're such hardcore coffee drinkers. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I love both. It all comes down to taste and whatever else. But then I think there's other friends who like, I don't know if it's because it's an Instagram trend or a TikTok trend where it's like, it's this iced tea and it's got this and this and this in it. And I'm just like, you're a fuckwit, just drink it.
Yeah, my wife lost her shit at me almost last weekend because she asked for an iced coffee on the way home, and I came home and they left the ice cubes in the iced coffee, and she thought I brought home an iced coffee with ice cream in it. That's what it looked like, so she got pretty angry at me. But then she saw it was an ice cube, and then she still got angry at me. But, at least it was an iced coffee with ice cubes and ice cream.
But as we wrap this up, Andy, could you tell us just a little bit more about Kickstart the Heart? Obviously, this is going to be the tail end of the episode. This episode is going to be dropping on October 20th, so you'll have just under 2 weeks of plugs. So,
most of the matches should have been announced by then if the wrestlers can get me their promos in time. Yes. Look, Oz Pro Wrestling, it's my first totally independently event, which means it's all my own money. Most of my effort and my blood, sweat, and tears that have been put into it. It will be live on November 2nd, Saturday, at the Central Ringwood Community Centre. Tickets start from as low as $25. There's also family ticket options as well. There's also gold seating and silver seating. There'll be a lot of merch. There's a raffle. Oh, the raffle prizes are pretty good. We've got a couple of tickets for AEW over in Brisbane. There's a couple of tickets for a new Star Wars expo that's coming to the Docklands area. There's also going to be a steel chair signed by all the wrestlers at the show as well. So the raffle is going to be bon. And obviously there's some great wrestlers. There's some great matches on there. I think a few off the top of my head. We're going to have, oh God, I want to tell you there's a guy who's returning, but again, I don't know if he'll have got his promo to me in time, so I can't drop that surprise at this moment, but I will say it's a former retired MCW wrestler who I'm hoping to drag out of retirement for this match. He, in addition to that, there is Owen Steedman taking on Jarvis, which should be an absolute show stealer. I hope so. I reckon Owen has earned this opportunity, so I really want to see him do the best that he can. The family-friendly Gore will be, of course, having a lovely contest with the Wrangler, Bush Kelly. We do have a mystery main event that will feature Ryan Rapid, who no doubt will be doing something suicidal. Tommy Hellfire will be there, and he's going to be addressing the future of Australian wrestling, and I know it's going to ruffle quite a few feathers. Ben and Breakfast, the greatest tag team to come out of PCW, will also be there after they sent me a really generous basket of Danishes. Look, it's going to be a great show. There's going to be some great experienced wrestlers. There's going to be a couple of young guys from the schools who are still early in their career who are going to be competing on the show as well. There's going to be 7 matches in total. Please come down and support. It's going to be a fun time. There's going to be beer. There's going to be hot dogs. There's going to be merch, all the good stuff. And the venue is fantastic. It's nice, it's light, it's airy, it's roomy, and there's a shit ton of parking. So you won't have any issues when you come down.
Now, that's a good one. How many venues have you gone to, and especially Sydney, where it's like, oh, it's near the train station, but then you got to still park fucking 10 minutes away anyway.
No, the parking is fantastic.
That is awesome.
Like, oh my God, just take my hands now. I want this venue.
But in terms of people that can't make the show, such as, well, actually, we're going to be in Canberra for Slam that same night, but for people that can't make the show for whatever reason, where is the footage going to be? Will there be footage after the show, I should say?
Yes, there will be footage. So I have a proper 3-camera setup for the event. So it will be fully edited. Look, I'm not, like I said, this is our first show. There's going to be things that we're going to want to change as well. But hey, we thought let's throw everything into it. So yes, you can actually, when you purchase your tickets, you can pre-buy a advanced copy of the. Sorry, excuse me. You can buy a digital copy of the event, which will be sent out to everyone who's bought it after the event. Not directly after the event. It gives us a week to edit it. I'm going to be busy backstage and I'm doing commentary on it, so I can't do both at the same time. But also we are going to be uploading it. I'm not quite sure of the logistics on that yet, so bear with me. But yes, the show will be available to buy during and after the event.
With that being said, Andy, where can we find Oz Pro Wrestling and yourself on social medias? And do you have any merch yourself that you'd like to plug?
I don't have any merch myself. And as we're filming this was the last day to get your family-friendly Gore shirt. So you've missed out on that one. But there'll be some other goodies at the event. I don't have any personal merch myself, but look, my social media. Look, if you search Andrew Coyne Wrestling, I should come up. Obviously, Oz Pro Wrestling is Oz Pro Res on things like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and X. And if you look, we've got our main website, ozprowrestling.com.au. So there you go. We're easy to find. Just Google searches. You'll be fine, everyone.
Yes, I'll be sure to try and link all of that. I thank you very much for your time, Andy, and I thank you very much for reaching out to us about other stuff that we can talk about off air in the future. But
absolutely, I'm really looking forward to working with as many people as I can. So because at the end of the day, look, wrestling is here. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a community, and if we can all support each other, we can make this a lot more fun for all of us.
And I know everyone says, "Oh, everyone always goes, oh, especially in wrestling, it's like brother, like I'll catch you down the road, brother." But no, once we get all this medical stuff underway, I will definitely be reaching back out to you about potential working opportunities and whatnot. But I thank you for giving us your time. What are words? Giving us your time here on this Wednesday evening as we're recording this. But yeah, good luck with the show. Cannot wait to watch the footage back myself when it is available, wherever it's available. But hey, follow Oz Pro to find out where that's going to be. But thank you very much, Andy. You enjoy the rest of your evening. You enjoy your beverage. I actually just enjoyed a very nice cup of tea. I don't even know what flavour it was, but it was amazing.
French vanilla rose.
There you go. French vanilla rose. I am a manly man.
Yes. Kind of tastes like Turkish Delight, so it's great.
Not a manly man. It was brewed with the thorns of the rose.
Just burying him live on air.
But thank you very much, Andy.
Yeah,
we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
very
for
much.
advice as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our what was that word you used, Nova?
Distinguished.
Our distinguished guest. Put your pinkies up. I really enjoyed that introduction. You're getting better week by week, which is the whole point of me getting you to do it, is because it's practice. You got to get your practice in somehow when you're only doing 3 shows a year, and hopefully next year will be 4 shows a year, if not a little bit more with other stuff we've got lined up. But yeah, we're going to try and get those reps in somehow, some way here on the CIC pod. But no, again, I'm a cracked record, and I say it every week, regardless of who we have on or who it is. I say it here on the show. I say it to them, whoever they may be, in their messages on Facebook and Instagram and everything else. But just thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Honestly, like
if we didn't have guests, we wouldn't have a podcast.
Like, I really appreciate, yes, we love doing the review episodes and the watch-alongs and this and that, but the whole point is, it's in the title, it's caught in conversation. Someone's hooning up my street. Shout out to Giant Coyote, #Hoons, at fucking 9:15 p.m. as I record this on a Sunday evening. Jesus Christ. Obviously, you're listening to this, whenever you listen to this, you might be listening to it when it drops, you might be listening to it on the Patreon 2 days early for as low as
$5 dues.
$5 Australian, $3 US dollars is our low tier of Rogue, $10 tier the Essential, which someone has actually subscribed to today as we record this, so thank you very much. With that tier, you get the early access plus the ability to ask us anything you want within reason. Keep it NSFW and topical to the podcast, and we will answer that question in whatever the most current episode is. Again, we're getting these pumped out. This is part 3 of a double header now for October, and it's awesome. We're getting it done. But yeah, and then you've got the $15 tier, which is the real main event. And of course, the $20 tier.
The Supernova tier.
Supernova, baby.
Hey, stop
Banger of
singing.
a tune. Absolute banger of a tune. Like, I know people are like, stop using AI, but forever damned, Samuel technically did pay for that AI subscription, so technically that's okay. He paid for the work.
It's still my custom song.
He didn't just rip it off somewhere. It was just from demos and whatever else. And yeah, but no, I really enjoyed this conversation with Andy was the point. So whenever you're listening to this, thank you. And thank you again to Andy for coming on. But obviously we're here. We're talking about AUS Pro Wrestling on November 2nd. Kickstart the Heart. Cannot wait to see footage from that show. And I cannot wait to see family-friendly gore, which reminds me, literally, as I'm recording this episode, I need to send that little clip to Andy so he can put it out on the socials and promote that show. And
I wish I got that shirt.
yes, dude, when he said the pre-orders were closed, I was like, no.
So
But,
bummed.
I mean, look, medical issues, it is what it is. Times are tough. I'm sure somehow, some way, eventually, I might be able to scour the interwebs in Australia and track down a fan that maybe for the right price they'll give it to me. But I cannot wait to see this show top to bottom. And as he said, there's some great well-known wrestlers on this card, but there's also some maybe not as well-known wrestlers. Like in the Victoria scene, maybe there's a few people that do know who they are, but for the grand scheme of things in Australia, that in AUS Pro Wrestling, Andy's giving a crack to here, and I just can't wait to see it. Obviously, as we said, we've got Gore, you've got Owen Steedman, you've got Bush Kelly, you've got Jarvis, Elaine Hope, who we're going to be working with in Extreme Capital Wrestling at the end of November, is on this show. There's just so much talent on this show, and he even said there's a former MCW alumni, I guess an MCW alumni, a former MCW roster member. If you're a former means you're alumni, duh. What are words? Buy the t-shirt. They're going to be on the show. We tried to get a little tease of who that may be, and even as we record this intro and outro, he still hasn't quite announced that just yet. He has teased it on socials that it's coming, but again, cannot wait to see who that is. But as always, the link trees are there for both myself and Nova. Nova's contain all of her socials as well as all the podcast socials, and I believe you've added the Patreon
I have.
there as well.
Yes, there as
Excellent.
well.
Mine obviously is the exact same. On top of that, I have my Crossfire page, my graphics page, all the individual links. So to take you to the profile page on Podbean, Apple Pod, Spotify, YouTube. I think the Google one's still there, even though I can't upload anymore. I don't know if the feed's still there. I should probably have a look at that and see if it is. But
We'll investigate.
I'm like, one day knowing the internet, they might put it back up, and you never know. So I'm just like leaving it there just in case. But yeah, obviously all the 4 main platforms we're currently using are there. The Pro Wrestling Tees is there. The GoFundMe's there. Again, we're not going to beg for cash, but if you want to help a brother out, then I'd appreciate it, because we got medical trips every 3 months for the foreseeable year and a half to 2 years. So, yay! Medical bills. Yay! But also, Amazon wishlist, something that I mentioned last week, and I'm going to mention it again, that I am going to beg for. If someone again wants to hook a brother up, or in this case, hook a sister up. Nova really wants that fucking Raphael pizza
really
cutter.
do.
And I just, happy wife, happy life. So, it's my birthday month as we record this, but hey, buy her a present, because why not? But yeah, it's all there. Really appreciate Andy for coming on. Do you want to do the song and match of the week, and then I'll do the plugs properly? Because I did touch on, obviously,
Sure.
AUS Pro and Extreme Capital Wrestling. But give us the song and match of the week, quick little rundown, and then we'll plugs and get the fuck out of here.
So, your song of the week for episode 130 was Kickstart My Heart, the Halocene cover. And your match of the week was Doug Williams versus AJ Styles, TNA Final Resolution 2010.
Hell yes. But yeah, so as we record this is going out on the 20th of October. So the next coming up event, Emma Butler Moore is sold out.
Yep.
Sold out
Sold
October
out.
26th. But remember, if you do have tickets, and I know that I do actually have some friends and family that listen to this show out of support, please bring that cash. Bring that cash, Ola. We want to raise that money for Emma. We want to have a great night. And more importantly, I shouldn't say more importantly, but on top of that, we just want to have a great wrestling show as well.
Definitely.
So we're going to raise money for an amazing cause. And obviously, we just want to put out a great product as well. But that being said, November 2nd, Andy's show, AUS Pro Kickstart the Heart, will be in the description in Victoria. And then that'll take us over all the way to the end of November for your next official ring announcing gig. November 23rd, Extreme Capital Wrestling, a Hard Day's Fight. We will be doing a preview for that, like we have the previous two at some point. Who knows what wrestlers may or may not hijack that episode. Hashtag Hoons in the background, fucking up my plugs. November 30th, MXW All for 1-2. Huge Rumble in Geelong. Winner of that match gets a title shot for the MXW Heavyweight Championship whenever they'll be next in Geelong. And as I said, if I was to hazard a guess, they're probably going to announce that at said show. And the main event, it's Richie Taylor, it's Bobby Fish. Bobby Fish actually just announced for Adrenaline on the 29th as well. So, you know, keep an eye out for that as well. If I can find the link for that, I might even fucking chuck that in there, because why not? Because I got some friends in Adrenaline now, and, you know, appreciate them and everything that they do. But yeah, there's wrestling, and this is the cheap plug, because obviously as we're doing this episode, it's dropping at the 12 p.m. on the Sunday. If you're listening to it at a time that it's dropping 5 p.m. in 5 hours' time from this episode, as part of our doubleheader, we've got Luke Watts promoting his show also November 2nd, but it's in Canberra. There is just amazing, amazing wrestling across this entire country. Like, from Tasmania with Doomslayer, who will be coming next week upon hearing this episode, all the way up to the top end of Queensland, the top end of Northern Territory, pun not intended, because they got top end wrestling, like all the way over to South Australia, West Australia. Like, it's all, obviously then we mix it up with New South Wales and ACT kind of, you know, not quite in the centre, but, you know, but no matter where you are or where you go, if you're booking a holiday in Australia, just get on social media. Have a look around you. Get on the Australian community page, because Michael Lee, former guest of the show, go listen to that every weekend. Says, here's all the shows that are happening. And every week people get in the comments and say, you forgot this show and you forgot that show. That's because there's just so many fucking shows. But it's a good thing, right? Like,
he's a one-man show running the whole thing.
But my point is, wherever you are in the country, if you listen to this podcast, if you're a professional wrestling fan, like, obviously if you're going on holidays with the family, treat the family first. But if you've got a spare 2 to 3 hours to kill on a Friday or a Saturday night, just take a look around. Yeah. Because as we record this,
everywhere.
As we record this, and I don't want to rant for too long because I want to wrap it up before we get to an hour and a half, because I don't want a fucking 10-minute long outro. But as we record this, Nova, we've just watched PWA Coliseum Night 2.
Phenomenal show.
We're usually, like, obviously we're back and forth to Sydney constantly for my eye issues and appointments and all the bullshit. That venue is literally a 10-minute walk. It's a 3-minute drive from one of the hotels that we stay at for my medical appointments. Like, the fact that, like, wrestling is that close to me and I'm just not there. Like, wrestling is closer than you realize. And that's another thing we discuss and talk about in these conversations, is people want to get into the business. And now in this day and age, you can Google wrestling Melbourne or wrestling Canberra or wrestling Perth, and you'll be shocked to see, and obviously for all the other states and cities and everywhere else, I've just mentioned you before, but you'll be shocked to see just how close the closest one is. It's really cool to see, and just thanks to Andy for coming on. But basically, there's lots of wrestling, all the stuff. I just love wrestling. Me and Nova are loving these conversations. Like, we've got 3 or 4 conversations in the can as we would do this intro and outro, and we're just loving talking about all of this wrestling. And it's just, there's not enough time in the day to watch all this wrestling, but we're going to try. We're going to try very hard, Nova.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you to Andy. That's going to be the last time I say it for this episode. Really appreciate the advice. Nova appreciated the advice.
Definitely.
Wish you the best of luck with AUS Pro and the talent that you have, and we hope that this isn't just a one-show deal, because it really does have potential. I mean, they, without going on a rant, they're advertising. They have advertising, I believe, on 7 News. I believe Tubi was one of them, I think I saw. It could have been wrong. Crunchyroll was on there, which was the big thing for me. Like, it's an anime thing, but if you're... And I think it's a local thing, so I think you have to be in Victoria to get that specific ad. But Crunchyroll, the home of all anime, is showing ads for AUS Pro Wrestling. That's pretty fucking sick. Like, and obviously,
cool.
as I said, local media and just a bunch of streaming services that have ads if you're local to that area. On those streaming services, you will get the AUS Pro stuff, which is mind-blowing. I am the Essential John L. Crossfire.
And I am Nova Lee.
This was a series of fortunate events, and you guys have just been caught
In conversation. Shaka laka laka.